Hey everyone, predict the ending. A. Revenge. B. Reconciliation. C. Unexpected twist. Pick ABC and explain. Stories coming up next. Vanessa got a standing ovation at graduation. I didn't even get a nod. My name's Angela. I'm 42 years old, born and raised in Springfield, Illinois. And if you ask anyone in my family about my high school years, they'll talk your ear off about my sister's cheerleading trophies and prom queen crown. They probably wouldn't even remember that I got into MIT 6 months early. Vanessa was the golden girl. Blonde, bubbly, captain of the cheer squad, student council president. She could flip her hair, smile, and get out of almost anything. Me? I was the weird kid who took apart microwaves and rewired the lawnmower for fun. I didn't care about school dances or popularity. I cared about logic, precision. I wanted answers, not applause. Our parents ate up every bit of her sparkle. When she made the local paper for winning a dance competition, they framed it. When I won first place at the state science fair for designing a fully functional robotic hand, it ended up buried under a pile of mail on the kitchen counter. Quick note, before we get deeper into the story, share which city or country you're watching from. I still remember graduation like it happened last week. The gym was packed, humid, buzzing with excitement. Vanessa walked across the stage like it was her personal runway. She gave some speech about leadership and school spirit that made the moms in the front row tear up. I sat in the third row, 2 seats from the aisle, clutching my MIT acceptance letter in my lap. Not one person in my family mentioned it. After the ceremony, everyone crowded around Vanessa, taking photos, hugging her. My dad handed her a little velvet box, a gold bracelet with her initials engraved. I stood maybe 10 feet away, holding my diploma and waiting like an idiot. No one turned around. That was the day I realized I didn't need their approval. I wasn't going to beg for it. I left town 2 weeks later with nothing but a suitcase, a toolbox, and a full scholarship. No goodbye party, no matching luggage set like Vanessa got when she went to college 2 years earlier. I didn't care. I wasn't going to be their background character anymore. I was done waiting for someone to notice me. MIT hit me like a brick wall in the best way. Nobody cared how I dressed, whether I smiled enough, or if I could carry a conversation about prom dresses. What mattered was how fast you could solve a problem under pressure, how deep you could think, how well you could build. I was home for the first time. I blew through undergrad in 3 years, then stayed for a master's. Somewhere in year 4, I got tapped for a private interview in a locked basement lab near Kendall Square. They didn't say who they were with, just told me they liked my drone flight optimization paper and handed me a sealed envelope with a plane ticket and a clearance form. I signed it without blinking. That's how I ended up inside one of the most classified R&D divisions of an aerospace defense contractor. I can't name it, still can't. But I spent the next 2 decades building tech most people won't know exists for another 10 years. Drone stabilization, encryption systems that lock out foreign threats in under 3 microseconds, power grids that self-correct during cyber attacks. I designed half the backbone of our country's unmanned air support. Meanwhile, Vanessa married her college boyfriend, Steve. Nice enough guy, dull as drywall. They moved back to Springfield after graduation. He opened a consulting firm. She started doing corporate PR, writing press releases for hospitals and fundraising for schools. The town loved her. They bought a 3-story colonial in a brand new subdivision with a name like Maple Hollow or Cedar Grove. She popped out 2 kids back to back and took over the PTA like she was running for office. Every newsletter had her name in it. Vanessa Cooper leads holiday fundraiser. Vanessa Cooper honored by Rotary Club. She was a small-town celebrity, and she loved every second of it. I visited for holidays when I could, rarely more than a couple days. My job didn't stop, not even for Christmas. But even when I was there, it was like I wasn't. My parents still didn't get it. They'd introduce me to people as, "Our Angela, she's out in Boston doing, well, something with computers, I think." I never corrected them. Not because I was hiding. I just got tired of explaining classified systems to people who barely knew how to reset their Wi-Fi. Vanessa, though, she had a way of making it worse. One Thanksgiving, while slicing pie, she turned to me in front of everyone and said, "So, still playing around with your little tech stuff? Must be fun not having to do real deadlines or deal with clients." I just looked at her. "Yeah, fun. Do you teach now?" she asked wide-eyed. "I heard you were doing something with kids. Coding camps or something," my mom laughed. "Oh, that's right. You did say something about that last year." I hadn't, but they nodded like it was settled. The digs got sharper with time, little jabs buried in smiles. "Must be nice to work in sweatpants." I wish I had a job where I could disappear for 6 months and nobody noticed. You're so lucky. No real responsibilities. I built systems that protected power plants and shut down cyber attacks before they hit water filtration lines. She thought I was living in a dorm with a laptop and a whiteboard. I could have put them all in their place. I could have listed every black site I'd walked through, every encrypted channel that passed through systems I built, but that would have meant breaking cover, risking people's safety. And for what? A slice of pumpkin pie and a fake compliment from my sister? Nah, I let them talk. Let her smile that smug little smile. But every time I left town, I drove faster than the time before. So when my mom called begging me to come home again, I almost let it go to voicemail. It was the tone in her voice that stopped me, that soft, pleading thing she only used when she really wanted something, but couldn't admit it outright. It's a big night for Vanessa, she said. The city's hosting the innovation banquet this year. Vanessa's on the organizing committee. She's speaking. I rubbed my temples. And? She'd like you there. I think it'd mean a lot. Yeah, right. I told her I'd check my schedule. What I didn't tell her was that I'd just landed in DC for a closed-door meeting with a joint cybersecurity task force. 6 countries, 26 briefings, 1 new title, Chief Technology Officer, 5 Eyes Security Collaboration. It was the highest level appointment I'd ever received, and technically, I couldn't even tell my mom it existed. By the time I left DC, I was running on caffeine, silence, and the weight of 3,000 pages of classified threat data. I changed clothes in a quiet airport lounge and boarded a regional flight to Springfield, wearing a charcoal blazer, navy slacks, and the same low heels I always used for deflecting attention. My suitcase had 3 USBs more powerful than most commercial servers. Nobody noticed. I didn't want to go. But I owed her that much. Or maybe I just wanted to prove I could sit through one more family circus without losing my temper. The banquet was held downtown at one of those new innovation centers funded by tech companies desperate for tax write-offs. Clean walls, fake plants, LED strips everywhere trying too hard to be modern. I parked across the street, checked my phone one last time for secure pings, then locked it in airplane mode. As I walked in, I caught sight of the banners, celebrating local excellence in technology, community leadership, and innovation. Vanessa's face was literally on the program, smiling, polished, pageant-ready. Her bio said she'd pioneered cross-sector initiatives bridging corporate storytelling and regional growth. I had no idea what that meant. I doubt she did either. There was a list of speakers on the back. Vanessa was slotted between the mayor and a venture capitalist from St. Louis. My name wasn't anywhere on the paper. Good. I planned to be in and out without drawing a single pair of eyes. Inside, I kept to the edges. Low profile, I'd worked too long in shadows to blow it all on one evening with local wine and cheap hors d'oeuvres. A woman in a red dress brushed past me, and I smelled the fake citrus of whatever perfume Vanessa always wore. I didn't have to look. I knew she was here. I breathed out through my nose, rolled my shoulders, and adjusted my blazer. Just get through the night. That was the plan. I made the mistake of drifting too close to the center of the room. Vanessa was already surrounded. City council types in blazers too sharp for the Midwest, a couple of local business owners, and 2 women I vaguely recognized from Springfield's social circuit. She was mid-sentence, laughing just a little too loud, waving a glass of white wine around like a baton. Her dress was fitted, red, and screaming for attention. Of course it was. She caught me before I could turn away. Angela! The whole group turned. I forced a smile, walked over, kept my hands clasped in front of me. Vanessa kissed the air next to my cheek and said, "Still doing that consulting gig, right? The computer stuff?" The man next to her, bald, probably late 50s, with a city lapel pin, nodded like he knew exactly what she meant. Freelance work's all the rage these days. What kind of computers exactly? Before I could answer, the brunette on Vanessa's left jumped in. "Oh, you teach coding, right? For kids? That's so cute. My son just started Python at camp." Vanessa didn't say a word, just took another sip of wine and looked off like the conversation had already moved on. I kept my mouth shut, bit down hard on the inside of my cheek. The sting didn't come from the mistake. It came from the way she let it hang there, like I didn't even deserve a correction. "Something like that," I said. "Small projects, nothing too flashy." Vanessa smiled, tilted her head. "Still allergic to attention, huh?" The city councilman chuckled, clearly impressed by her. "Well, not everyone needs a spotlight. Some people are just behind the scenes. I nodded, like it didn't bother me. Like I hadn't just spent 3 days in DC rewriting national defense protocols. My hands were starting to sweat. Vanessa turned back to her group, already mid-story again. Something about a ribbon cutting and a mayor who mispronounced infrastructure. The circle closed back up, and I was left standing there like a cardboard cutout. I started to walk away. Then I heard the voice behind me. Is that Angela Cooper? It cut through the room like a wire snapping under pressure, sharp, commanding. I turned and froze. He was older now, grayer, but I'd recognize him anywhere. Former CIA Director Jonathan Rourke. I hadn't seen him in person in nearly 10 years. The last time, we were deep underground in a secure vault facility outside Zurich. Angela, he said again, smiling as he approached. I wasn't expecting to see you here. People started to notice. The ones around Vanessa especially. I heard about your appointment, he said, gripping my hand in both of his. Chief Technology Officer, 5 Eyes, hell of a job. Vanessa's glass stopped halfway to her mouth. I told them, Rourke went on, turning to the crowd around us. There's no one better. She built the encryption backbone we're using for secure intel drops across 3 continents. Someone whispered, Wait, what? She's the quiet genius behind the firewall that keeps us all safe, Rourke added, grinning at me. I didn't say a word, just smiled, politely, while my heart slammed against my ribs. He squeezed my hand once and walked off like nothing happened. No drama, no spotlight, just dropped a bomb and kept moving. The silence around me got heavy. Vanessa didn't move. I watched Rourke disappear into the crowd like nothing had happened, but something had. Everyone around me felt it. The air shifted, conversation slowed, then stopped completely. I could see people piecing it together in real time. Vanessa's sister wasn't just some coder. She wasn't just doing that thing with computers. A woman across the circle leaned toward her husband and whispered something. His eyebrows shot up. The city councilman who'd laughed at me 10 minutes ago looked like he'd swallowed a thumbtack. Then Rourke came back. He clapped me on the shoulder, this big, easy grin on his face like we were old college buddies. I know you don't like the spotlight, Angela, but you earned this one. Hell, we've been trying to lock you down for years. Getting you to lead 5 Eyes? That's a win for all of us. Now every head was turned. Phones were being lowered, eyes locked in. Frankly, he said, now addressing the entire circle, I've worked with a lot of brilliant minds, but very few have Angela's level of clarity and control. She doesn't just build security, she anticipates threats before they happen. She's kept hospitals online during ransomware hits. She's kept supply chains from collapsing. She's saved lives. I stood there, motionless, trying not to react. Years of training kicked in. Steady breath, no blinking. Vanessa still hadn't moved. Her wine glass hovered just off her chest like she forgot she was holding it. Rourke leaned in one last time, more quietly now. We've got a hell of a road ahead, but knowing you're leading this, I sleep better. Then he shook my hand again, firm and deliberate. The quiet genius behind the firewall that keeps us all safe, he said louder before stepping back. He nodded once and left the circle. Gone. And the silence hit harder. The people around Vanessa looked at me differently now. Not curious, reverent. One of the local tech guys took a step closer. You're that Angela Cooper? I gave a quick nod. That's me. You're the one who built the counter-intrusion grid for the aviation network? I led the team, I said, voice flat. Another voice cut in. You stopped that Eastern Europe breach last year, didn't you? I didn't answer. That's when Vanessa spoke, low, uncertain. 5 Eyes, that's real? I turned my head toward her. Yes, Vanessa, it's very real. She blinked, slowly, like she couldn't believe what was coming out of my mouth. The brunette from earlier, the one who thought I taught kids, shifted behind her, almost hiding now. Someone cleared their throat. Another guy near the edge pulled out his phone and started typing. It was like the whole narrative had collapsed. I wasn't the awkward sister in a blazer anymore. I was the one they didn't know how to talk to. And for the first time in my life, I liked it that way. Vanessa stood frozen, one foot slightly turned like she was about to leave but didn't know where to go. I didn't give her an out. Vanessa finally blinked and said, You're what now? I turned to face her fully. Chief Technology Officer of the 5 Eyes Security Collaboration. Her eyes narrowed like she thought I was joking. That's real? Yes, I said flat. It's real. It's an international intelligence alliance. I oversee encryption systems, threat analysis, and infrastructure security protocols shared by 5 nations. Someone behind her let out a low whistle. I've spent 20 years in black sites, war rooms, and government bunkers. I've written code that stops cyber attacks on hospitals, built defensive nets that protect air traffic control and clean water access in high-risk zones. When ransomware takes out a hospital in Dallas and the generators don't fail, that's me. When power grids hold during coordinated attacks, me again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Vanessa stepped back half an inch. You never said anything. I wasn't allowed to, I shot back. But that never stopped you from running your mouth anyway. Her mouth opened, then shut. You stood by while people laughed at me at dinner tables. Let them believe I was a glorified babysitter for laptops. You never corrected them. Hell, sometimes you encouraged it. She started to say something, but I cut in. You've called what I do, that thing with computers, for over a decade. Like it's a hobby. Like I've been wasting my life in my pajamas. A small crowd had started to form. Quiet, curious. One of the local journalists edged forward, notebook already out. I kept going. You want to know what my consulting gig actually was? It was developing encryption that withstood 14 separate state-sponsored infiltration attempts in 1 year. It was building the intrusion detection framework that NATO adopted for forward operating bases. I looked around, locking eyes with every person now watching. You've all heard her talk about how I was always off doing something techie while she was building a life here. Guess what? I was building systems that kept millions of people alive. Vanessa's hands dropped to her sides. I didn't mean to. Yeah, you did, I said. You meant to dismiss it. You've done it since we were kids. I turned slightly, addressing the crowd without meaning to. Do you know what it's like to be dismissed by your own family while you're briefing governments on how to prevent full-scale blackouts? To come home and hear people ask if you teach Scratch to middle schoolers when you've spent the week advising military contractors? No one moved. Even the guy with the wine glass from earlier was frozen in place. I kept quiet for years, I said, because I thought, fine, maybe they just don't get it. Maybe I should be more understanding. But that's not what it was. It wasn't confusion, it was disrespect. It was easier for everyone if I stayed small and simple and non-threatening. I looked straight at Vanessa again. But I'm done doing that. Her face had drained of color. She looked like she didn't know which part to react to first. I don't care if I fit into your newsletters, I said. I don't need to. I've earned respect from people who deal in facts and results. I don't need validation from family members who couldn't bother to Google what I actually do. Someone clapped. One person, then another. I didn't even look to see who started it. Vanessa stepped forward. Angela, I didn't know. No, I said. You didn't want to. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just stood there, centered, grounded, and finally not shrinking to make anyone else more comfortable. Vanessa didn't say anything. She just stood there, frozen, like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. Her mouth opened a couple times, but nothing came out. Her hands, always so composed, started fidgeting with her bracelet, the same gold one Dad gave her at graduation. Then Steve showed up. He slipped in beside her like he'd just realized something was wrong. Hey, Angela, he said, voice too loud. Wow, CTO, that's a big deal, huh? He laughed once, awkward and thin. Guess we always knew you were good with numbers. I gave him a look. It's not numbers. It's war prevention? He nodded too fast. Right, of course, yeah. Vanessa didn't look at him. Then I heard my mom's voice. What's going on here? She and Dad were approaching from the side entrance, both holding half-empty wine glasses. My mom stopped short when she saw the crowd. Why is everyone looking at Angela? A woman near her whispered something. I caught the words Security Alliance and International, but couldn't tell who said it. My dad squinted at me. What's this about a job title? I turned toward them. I was appointed Chief Technology Officer of the Five Eyes Security Collaboration. His eyebrows lifted, like it took him a second to register the words. My mom blinked. That's some kind of tech thing? One of the business leaders nearby, the guy who ran the regional data center, I think, spoke up. It's the cybersecurity backbone for Western intelligence. It's massive. My mom looked at me again, slower this time. Why didn't you tell us? I didn't answer. Around us, a few more people clapped. Half-hearted, unsure, like they sensed something big had just happened but weren't sure how to respond. Vanessa still hadn't moved. The applause fizzled out, replaced by the low hum of murmurs, heels shifting, glasses clinking. Someone asked for a program. Someone else whispered about the CIA guy. I watched Vanessa. Her eyes were locked on the floor like she was trying to rewind the night, pick out the exact moment she lost control of the story. Her perfect little world didn't fit anymore, and she knew it. She finally looked up at me, slowly, as if she'd aged 10 years in 5 minutes. Her voice was barely audible. I didn't know it was like that. No, I said. You didn't. And for once, she didn't argue. She didn't smile. She didn't deflect. She just stood there, her husband useless beside her, our parents silent, and every piece of her carefully crafted image cracking right down the middle. People started drifting away. A few gave me polite nods, some still whispering to each other. No one looked at Vanessa. No one asked her about the fundraiser or her speech. She just stood there, arms stiff at her sides, lips pressed together like if she moved, the whole illusion might shatter completely. I turned to walk toward the exit, not rushing, but done. And that's when my mom reached out and touched the lapel of my blazer, right over the pin I hadn't taken off since DC. Her hand hovered there a second. Why didn't you ever tell us? I looked her in the eye. I tried, for years, but every time I said anything, it got turned into a joke, or worse, ignored. We didn't mean, I know, I cut in. But it still happened. After a while, it got easier to just stay quiet, be the ghost in the room. She dropped her hand. I thought you liked being private. I like not being constantly misunderstood, I said. I stopped sharing because I was tired of having to explain myself just to be taken seriously. She didn't argue. For once, she listened. Then Vanessa stepped closer. Her voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. I didn't know about any of it. You didn't want to know. She winced. That's fair. There was a pause. Not awkward, just heavy. I thought you didn't care, she said, that you were just off doing your own thing. I was, because there wasn't room for me here. She looked down. I didn't understand what you were really doing. You didn't ask, I said. You made jokes. You let people believe I was some burnout who never grew out of her science projects. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did? She looked up again, eyes glassy but steady. I'm sorry, I nodded. I forgive you, but that doesn't erase what came before. I know. I needed support, I said. Not awards or attention, just respect. You didn't have to understand everything I was doing. You just had to stop acting like it didn't matter. Vanessa swallowed hard, then nodded. Silence, I added. Especially when you know people are being disrespected. That's its own kind of betrayal. That one hit her. She blinked fast but said nothing. My dad cleared his throat behind us. He looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. My mom was still staring at me like she'd never really seen me until now. You know, she said, more to herself than anyone else. Your room still has those old robot posters. I almost laughed. Figures. She gave a small smile. I didn't realize. All this time, we had no idea who you really were. I shrugged. Maybe you still don't. But tonight was the first time I didn't hide it. More silence. Not awkward, just real. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the weird one in the family. I wasn't the background noise to someone else's highlight reel. I wasn't Vanessa's sister. I was Angela. The woman who'd spent her life building something that would outlive every one of us. And they finally saw it. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my old bed, staring at the same wall I used to lean against doing physics homework with a flashlight and a bag of chips. The posters were still there. Robots, jet engines, aircraft blueprints curling at the edges. Same cheap dresser, same scuffed floorboards. The whole room felt like a time capsule built by a girl who'd already decided she wasn't staying. My blazer was draped over the chair. I'd taken the pin off, set it carefully on the nightstand. A reminder that tomorrow I'd be back on a plane to DC, where the real work was waiting. 2 weeks, and I'd be in charge of operations that stretched across 5 nations. No ceremony, no press release, just clearance codes and 20-hour days, same as always. I thought about the speech I gave, if you could call it that. None of it had been planned. It just cracked out of me, like pressure finally let loose after too many years buried under silence. The crazy part was, it didn't even feel good. Not at first, just necessary. But now, sitting in this room, surrounded by the pieces of who I was before the world knew my name, it did feel good. Quietly, steadily. Not because they finally saw me, because I stopped hiding. I let them see what I chose to build, not for their praise, not to prove a point, but because it mattered, and I'd earned the right to say so out loud. I walked over to the mirror, the same one that used to fog up while I soldered circuit boards with a heat gun running full blast. I looked into it and saw exactly who I'd become. Not the misunderstood daughter, not the background genius, just me. A woman who never needed validation to be exceptional. Just the courage to stop pretending she wasn't,